And action.
And here we are in Studio One, the largest television studio in the whole of Europe. We did think it was the largest one in the world, but there's one in Sao Paulo in Brazil. It's a lot bigger than this one. This one is 10,000 square feet. If you look above you here, what you can see is a saturated lighting rig. There are 600 lights above you. Each light is blasting out approximately 5 kilowatts of heat, which is the equivalent of a 5-bar fire. So if you multiply that by 600, well, I'll let you do the maths. This rig, unlike theatre... Okay.
And action.
And here we are in Studio One, the largest television studio in the whole of Europe. We did think it was the largest one in the world, but there's one in Sao Paulo in Brazil that houses Brazilian soap opera, which is a lot larger. Well, here we are in Studio One. We've made it the largest television studio in the whole of Europe. We did think it was the largest one in the world, but there's one in Sao Paulo in Brazil that is much bigger than this, that houses Brazilian soap opera. This studio is 10,000 square feet. If you look above you, you will see 600 lights. Each light blasts out approximately 5 kilowatts of heat. That's the equivalent of a 5-bar fire. Multiply that by 600, and well, you can do the maths yourselves. This rig is called a saturated lighting rig. This means you can light any area in the studio that you so wish. Over here we have a console that operates the lighting rig. At the press of these buttons, the whole rig comes down to floor level and is operated from floor level.
Cut. And action.
And here we have the lighting console that operates all of the lights.
Okay, cut. Action.
And here we have the lighting console that operates all the lights from above us. At a flick of a switch, the lights will come down to the floor.
Action.
And here we have the lighting console that operates all the lights above us. At a flick of a switch, we can operate the lights so that they come down to floor level, and we can change the light. On one side there is a spotlight, a very harsh light, and on the other side there is a very soft light with the grill.
Okay, cut. Action.
And here we have the lighting console that operates all the lights above us. At a flick of a switch, the light will come down to ground floor level, and we can adjust it so we can get it exactly how we want it. On one side,
cut.
And here we have the lighting console that operates all of the lights above us. At a flick of a switch, we can bring the light down to ground floor level and move it so it's exactly placed exactly where we want it to light our set.
Action.
And here we have the lighting console that operates all the lights above us. At a flick of a switch, we can bring the lights up or down. Anyway,
Action.
that's what it's all about, isn't it?
You can see your hand. Do it again. Okay, action.
All the floors here at the BBC are painted. This surface is a rubberised surface so that it can be painted and then washed off at the end of the day. The floor is the first thing to go down in the morning and the last thing to be washed off at night. Has anyone ever watched Only Fools and Horses and Del Boy Trotter? Well, all of those carpets in his flat are actually painted on. So there you go, you learn something new every day.
and action.
So, oh God, all the floors at the BBC are painted. All the floors here at the BBC are painted on. They're the first thing to be painted on in the morning.
Cut. Roll of and action.
All the floors here at the BBC are painted on. They're the first things to go down on the floor in the morning and the last things to come off at night. Somebody comes along with a great big machine that looks like one of the machines you get at the ice rink and washes it all off. Live and Kicking, significantly, has a different floor every single week in order to keep it cool and trendy and up to date.
And look up. Action.
Through these large hangar doors, tanks have come in from Blue Peter, Jules Holland's, piano, elephants, marching bands, you name it, ski lifts, everything. No, that's a bit crap. Hold on, let me just...
Action.
Okay. Marching bands from Blue Peter, Madonna, Prince, everybody who went to Children in Need have all walked through these large hangar doors.
Can we have roll over and action.
All the large BBC dramas such as I, Claudius, Elizabeth R, all the big charity events like Children in Need, Red Noses, have all come from this studio here. Wow. Okay. This rail running around the studio is called a cyclorama rail, and from which black cloths, white cloths, painted scenic artist cloths cover the grotty walls and create the space. Black cloths generally create a more intimate space, whereas white cloths, such as the one over there, create a more wide, open expanse.
Having fun. Oh, nice. Good, yeah. Might as well.
Yes, and the problem is it's locked. We're going to need a technician to open it. So we have to go around the other way, because it's all locked up. Because there's millions of pounds worth of equipment in there. Okay.
And action.
Well, here we are in the production gallery of Studio One. It is here that the piece is edited, put together.
Roll over and action.
Welcome to Studio One's production gallery. It is here that the production is edited, put together like pieces from a jigsaw puzzle.
Roll over and action.
Behind me, that's a bit naff, isn't it?
That's good.
Does it look alright?
Okay, still rolling. Action.
Behind me is a bank of monitors. It looks a bit like a bad day at Dixon's. These can be set up in any way your production team so wish, but there is an industry standard that normally does apply. On this side here, you'll have your outside broadcasts, your journalist on the street. On the middle screens here, you'll have your cameras connected to the studio floor. And on this side here, you'll have your still images and your extra VT image. But the most important screen of all is this screen. Ta-da! The transmission screen, your final
Okay,
end
sorry,
product.
but you're just out of shot there. Okay, so I'm going to tell you an action.
Behind me is a bank of monitors.
Okay, we'll do it again because you did it too quick. Roll over and action.
Behind Behind me is a bank of monitors. It looks a bit like a bad day at Dixon's. These can be set up in any way that you, the production team, so wish, but there is normally an industry standard that does apply. On this side here, you'll have your outside broadcast, your journalist on the street. Here, is that alright?
Yeah, it's fine.
I just see you looking a bit...
Yeah, no, I was just interested.
Right.
Action. No, I can see you, can see you. Action.
Behind me is a bank of monitors. It looks a bit like a bad day at Dixon's. These monitors could... Oh, fucking hell.
And action.
Behind me is a bank of monitors. It looks a bit like a bad day at Dixon's. These can be set up in any way that you, the production team, so wish, but there is normally an industry standard that does apply. On this side here you have your outside broadcast, for instance your man on the street. On the centre cameras underneath here you'll have the cameras attached to the studio floor, and on this side here you'll have your still images and your extra VT material. But the most important screen of all is this screen, the transmission screen. This is your final end product after weeks and weeks of hard work by the production team. These two screens here are called the preview screens, and they line up the shots for this main transmission screen here.
Right, and action.
This seat here is normally where the producer sits. The producer is probably one of the most important people, if not the most important person in this room. They'll have perhaps come up with the initial idea, the overall concept for the product, and they'll have been responsible for selling it to the various channels and making sure that the product fulfills the channel's expectations. They'll also be in charge of the money. They'll hold the purse strings.
Do it again. And action.
Here is normally where the producer sits. He or she will have come up with the initial concept for the product and will have been responsible for selling it to the channel. He or she will have employed everybody else in this room, so it's very important to keep on the right side of the producer. During the editing process, the producer may sit here or go and sit in the producer's room there and view the material on his or her very own transmission screen, or may just decide that their role is now up and just sit there and dine on canapes, juicy carchofai and drinking champagne. Whatever the producer wants, he or she gets.
And action.
Next to him sits the production assistant, who probably has the most difficult job of everybody in this room. He or she will have organised everything administrational, organisational, from making sure that the studio is open to organising rehearsal times, to making sure the cameramen have their right camera cards, catering, transport, you name it, they do it. And also they're sitting next to the producer and the director the other side. When they get into the studio, their job does not stop there. All of the staff will have an earpiece in their ear, and continuously they will hear the production assistant calling the shots. For instance, camera 5, shot 4, camera 2 next, camera 2, shot 6, camera 3 next, and so on and so forth. They'll also be responsible for the timing of the show, and if it's a quiz show or a, for instance, they'll also be keeping an eye on the scores. So quite a demanding role.
Action.
Next to the producer and the production assistant sits the
Let's
director.
do that again.
Yeah.
Action.
Next to the producer and the production assistant sits the director. The director is responsible for the overall concept or style or idiom of the particular show. Whereas the producer is perhaps more of a bureaucrat, the director is more creative. They'll have liaised with lighting, set, costume, props and so on, making sure that everything pieces together. If it's a drama, they'll have rehearsed the actors. They'll be communicating to the studio floor through this talkback system here, and we'll be talking to the floor manager. The floor manager on the shop floor is, if you like, the director's eyes and ears and makes sure that everything moves seamlessly on the studio and keeps up the communication with the production gallery and the studio floor. Here is where...
No, that's too fast.
Okay.
And action.
Here is where the vision mixer sits, operating Concorde. Not really. Apparently it's a lot easier than it looks. Sometimes you might have a couple of vision mixers if there's a lot of shot changes. So you have to be very, very dexterous. If it's a musical, for instance, something like The Proms, then the vision mixer will have to be able to read
do that
music
again.
as well.
You're stumbling. Action.
Here is where the vision mixer sits. The vision mixer is very dexterous, and whilst the production assistant is calling the shots, the vision mixer will be changing the screens on the preview screens and eventually the transmission screen. You have to be very, very dexterous. There might be a couple of people operating this board if there's a lot of shot changes. If it's something like The Proms, the vision mixer will have to be able to read music as well.
Action.
The BBC has
It's okay, still rolling.
The BBC has various software packages. Sorry, BBC. Sorry.
It's okay, action.
The BBC has various software packages. For instance, here we have the Quantel picture box. There's also a machine called the Charisma, which does things like change Jim Davidson into a snooker ball or changes the Spice Girls into Christmas trees. That piece of equipment alone is £500,000.
And action.
Next to the vision mixers sits the SRM, the Studio Resources Manager. He or she might be the only member of BBC staff within the production gallery. So they will be responsible for good customer service, for ensuring that the studios are working and that communications between the BBC and the production team are moving smoothly. They will be helped by runners who will go off and make cups of tea, coffee and do various errands as and when. If the producer at the end wants an elephant flying through the ceiling, it's the SRM's responsibility to make sure that can happen, whether it be virtual reality or phoning up the RSPCA and checking we're insured.
And action.
And here we are, sitting on the set of Blue Peter, the longest running children's programme in the world. Started in a very limited way back in the 1950s, just a quarter of an hour a week. Little girls were shown dollies, little boys shown how to play with train sets. But since then, Blue Peter has come a very long way.
And action.
And here we are, in Studio 4 on the set of Blue Peter. Not really. We're actually in a massive hangar on the outside of the television centre where all the scenery is stored.
Action.
The sets themselves are actually made of plywood. Plywood is very easy to paint, easy to construct, and when it's finished with, it's actually thrown away because it's a lot cheaper to do that than to actually store it here in the hangar, and space is limited.
Okay, cut. Action.
Blue Peter, do you want me to say that?
No, because action.
Blue Peter is called Blue Peter after the flag that sailors used to hoist in the olden days to signify that they were going off on new and exciting adventures, rather like they do on Blue Peter. Whether it be parachuting or bungee jumping, you name it, the Blue Peter presenters do it.
Action.
They've recently upped the colour.
No, that was too quick. Do it again.
They've recently upped the colour on a lot of children's programmes on BBC One to compete with the other side. For instance, just behind me you will see the colourful set for Blue Peter, every colour under the rainbow, not the blue and white ship of the olden times.
That's action's fine. Fired. Action.
Hello. And here we have one.
Sorry. Do that again, that the frame.
I'm afraid it's not a wide open expanse in there. It really is just made of plywood. Sorry, disillusions about this. This is one of the only 4 Doctor Who boxes left in the entire world, recently used in a sketch by Harry Enfield and on a spoof by Rowan Atkinson.
Okay, sorry. Clever and action.
No, I'm afraid it's not a wide open expanse inside the TARDIS, but it really is just an empty box made of plywood. That is just one of the 4 Doctor Who boxes left in the entire world, recently used on a spoof by Harry Enfield and a spoof also by Rowan Atkinson. Here we have a multitude of gold props used for Julian Clary's All Rise with Julian Clary.
Action.
This teddy bear prop here is very precious and I don't want to pick it up. It's the only prop left from Only Fools and Horses. Apparently most of the other props went to the crew.
Okay, action.
Prop it up is actually freelance. Behind me you see a Newton and Ripley mirror from soap opera Coronation Street. Randomly film things, then those will have those stones out. And here we have a plethora of lamps. You have to be very careful if you're choosing a lamp from here and prop it up, because if it's appeared on Only Fools and Horses and then appears again in EastEnders, people will notice, and we do get letters.
Action.
And here we have a plethora of lamps. We have to be very, very careful when choosing our props, because if they have been seen on one programme, for instance EastEnders, and then reappear on... Sorry, I can't think of the programme. What did you...
Action.
And here we have a plethora of lamps. We have to be very careful when choosing your props, because if a lamp has appeared on EastEnders and then reappears on Men Behaving Badly, people do notice and we do get letters.
Action. Action. Action.
Oh, I know, look, I'll get a hoop. Should I do it really badly and then go, oh, okay.
Action. Keep going.
When I look into the mirror, what do I see? What do I really see? When I was stoned once, I looked into the mirror. I never got stoned again. And I saw this old face, this leathered elephant skin with little holes in it, and these green eyes like witches' eyes, and these airy eyebrows. Bit like a witch, I suppose, really. I never got stoned again.